The loan officer's name was Patricia Helm, and she had the particular professional composure of someone who delivered uncomfortable information regularly enough to have developed a system for it. She pulled up the credit report, studied something on her screen for a moment longer than felt routine, and then turned the monitor so Sandra could see it. "Are you aware of these accounts?" she asked. Sandra looked at the screen. Then she looked more carefully. She had gone in that morning with a folder, pay stubs, tax returns, 2 forms of ID. She had made the appointment 3 weeks earlier and had felt, driving to the bank, the specific hopefulness of someone whose life was finally moving in a direction she had chosen deliberately. The apartment she wanted to buy was 11 minutes from her office. She had walked through it twice. The credit report had 4 accounts she had not opened. The oldest dated back 4 years. The names on them were close. Her middle name used as a first, a transposition in her date of birth that was either a mistake or designed to pass a casual check. The addresses were hers. An old apartment. Her mother's house, where she had lived briefly after graduate school. Places that would have been easy to know for someone who already knew her. She studied the screen and felt the information arranging itself into a shape she didn't want to recognize and couldn't stop recognizing. She thanked Patricia Helm. She said she would need to make some calls. She drove to a parking garage 2 blocks away and sat in her car and pulled up her brother's number. Dean picked up on the second ring. "Sandra," he said, and then, without a pause, without her saying anything at all, "I know why you're calling, and I need you to let me explain." She sat with the phone against her ear and the engine still running, and she felt something leave her. Not anger, which she had expected, but something quieter and more permanent, like a temperature dropping. He had been waiting for this call. Dean had told himself it was temporary from the beginning. This is the thing about the stories people tell themselves. They don't start dishonest. They start as bridges, as placeholders, as measures that will be corrected once circumstances improve. He had been in a bad period. The word period implies containment, which was also part of the story. He had needed a line of credit he couldn't qualify for. Sandra's information had been there, in the way that a sibling's information is always partially there. Addresses known, birthdays memorized, the particular intimacy of shared history making certain things possible that shouldn't be. He had intended to pay it down before she noticed. This was true. He had also, over 4 years, not done that, which was also true. And the two truths had coexisted in him with a discomfort he had mostly managed not to examine directly. He loved his sister. This was perhaps the most complicated true thing. He explained for 6 minutes. Sandra let him. She was not being generous. She was listening for the thing she needed to hear, the specific sentence that would tell her what she was actually dealing with. It came near the end. He said, "I always figured we'd work it out between us before it ever became a thing." Before it ever became a thing. As though the thing it had become was a matter of timing rather than of what he had done. As though her mortgage appointment had created the problem rather than revealed it. She asked him one question: "When were you going to tell me?" The pause before his answer was its own answer. But he filled it eventually, with something about waiting for the right time, and she understood then that the right time had always been a door he intended to walk through later and later and later. "Okay," she said. "Sandra, I'll talk to you soon." She ended the call. The fraud specialist at her bank was named Marcus Webb. He was thorough and unsurprised in the way of someone whose job had taught him that the perpetrator is often known to the victim. He walked her through the dispute process with the patience of someone who understood it was not a simple afternoon. He used the word formal report several times. He did not use the word criminal, though it lived in the space around the conversation. She filed the report. Her hands were steady. 40 minutes later, while she was still on hold with the credit bureau, a text arrived from her mother. "Dean called me. Sandra, please think about what this does to the family. He made mistakes, but he's your brother." She read it twice. She noticed that the text did not say he hadn't done it. She noticed that mistakes was the word her mother had chosen, singular in its implication, softened in its shape. She set the phone face down on the passenger seat and listened to the hold music, which was something instrumental and unoffending, and she waited. The mortgage was delayed. Not denied, delayed, pending dispute resolution, which Marcus Webb estimated at 60 to 90 days. The apartment she wanted might still be available. It might not. Dean called 3 more times over the following week. She let them go to voicemail and listened to each one. He was sorry. He was genuinely sorry. She believed this in the way she believed he had always intended to fix it. People could intend things sincerely and still not do them. She had learned this at a cost she was still calculating. She didn't call him back. Not yet. Not because she was punishing him, but because she didn't know what she wanted to say, and she had learned somewhere in the last 10 days that she was allowed to wait until she did. The dispute was moving. The paperwork was filed and true. She drove home through ordinary traffic and made dinner and sat at her own table in her own apartment, and the silence was hers, and it was not comfortable, and it was not the silence of someone who had won anything. It was just the silence of what remained.